Picture this. You walk into a room and without saying a word, you already have her complete attention. Not because you're the loudest guy there, not because you're showing off, but because something deeper is happening in her brain. Something primal. Something she can't quite explain but feels irresistibly drawn to. What if I told you that this isn't magic, it isn't luck, and it definitely isn't about your looks or your bank account? What you're witnessing is pure neuroscience in action. And today, you're going to learn exactly how to trigger it on command. Welcome to the hidden world of dopamine mastery, where understanding the female brain becomes your greatest weapon in attraction. Most guys are playing checkers while you're about to learn chess. They're focused on pickup lines and surface-level tactics, while you'll be operating at a neurochemical level that creates genuine, uncontrollable desire. By the end of this video, you'll understand why some men effortlessly attract women while others struggle despite having everything going for them on paper. The secret lies in understanding one simple truth that Robert Cialdini revealed in his groundbreaking work on influence. People are driven by predictable psychological triggers that operate below the level of conscious awareness. When you know how to activate these triggers specifically in the context of female attraction, you don't just get attention, you create addiction. And the master key to this entire system is dopamine, the neurotransmitter that controls motivation, desire, and the pursuit of reward. Dr. Helen Fisher, one of the world's leading anthropologists and experts on romantic love, has spent decades studying the brain chemistry of attraction. Her research using fMRI brain scans reveals something extraordinary. When someone is intensely attracted to another person, their brain shows activity patterns remarkably similar to those of cocaine addicts. The same neural pathways light up, the same craving mechanisms activate. The difference is that instead of craving a drug, they're craving you. But here's where most men get it completely wrong. They think triggering attraction means being the most handsome, the richest, or the most successful guy in the room. That's surface-level thinking that keeps you trapped in mediocrity. The real game is played in the dopamine system, and dopamine doesn't care about your six-pack abs or your sports car. Dopamine cares about unpredictability, novelty, and the promise of reward. Master these three elements, and you master her attention. Let's start with the foundation. Dr. Anna Lembke, author of Dopamine Nation, explains that our brains are constantly seeking the next hit of dopamine. It's not about the reward itself, it's about the anticipation of the reward. This is why slot machines are so addictive, why social media keeps us scrolling, and why certain men become absolutely irresistible to women. They understand that attraction isn't about giving her everything she wants immediately. It's about creating a state where she's constantly anticipating what might come next. Think about the last time you binge-watched a Netflix series. What kept you glued to the screen wasn't the resolution of the story, it was the cliffhangers. Each episode ended with just enough uncertainty to flood your brain with dopamine, compelling you to watch just one more. The writers understood that your brain's reward system responds more powerfully to anticipated pleasure than to the pleasure itself. This principle, when applied to attraction, becomes devastatingly effective. The first weapon in your dopamine arsenal is what neuroscientist Dr. Wolfram Schultz calls reward prediction error. This occurs when reality differs from expectation in a positive way. In practical terms, this means being slightly unpredictable in your interactions, not chaotic or unreliable, but pleasantly surprising. When every other guy follows the same predictable pattern of texting immediately, always being available, and saying exactly what she expects to hear, you stand out by introducing controlled unpredictability. Dr. Robert Sapolsky, in his extensive research on behavioral conditioning, found that intermittent reinforcement creates the strongest behavioral responses. This is why gambling addicts can't stop pulling the lever even when they're losing money. The occasional win creates a dopamine spike so powerful that it overrides rational decision-making. When you apply this principle to attraction, you become the human equivalent of a slot machine, but one that pays out in emotional connection and excitement. Here's how this translates to real-world interaction. Instead of responding to her texts within minutes every single time, you create what behavioral psychologists call a variable ratio schedule. Sometimes you respond quickly, sometimes you take a few hours. Occasionally, you respond immediately with something unexpected. This isn't about playing games or being manipulative. It's about understanding that predictability is the enemy of desire. When she knows exactly how you'll respond and when, there's no dopamine release. When she's genuinely uncertain, her brain starts working overtime, generating the very neurochemicals that create attraction. The second pillar of dopamine mastery is novelty. Dr. Nico Bunzek's research at University College London demonstrates that the brain's dopamine system is specifically designed to respond to new and unexpected stimuli. This explains why vacation relationships feel so intense, why forbidden fruit tastes sweetest, and why the same woman who seems disinterested in her predictable social circle will become fascinated by someone who represents something different. Most men make the fatal mistake of trying to fit in with her world, becoming another carbon copy of every other guy in her orbit. They dress the same, talk about the same topics, and offer the same experiences. From a neurochemical perspective, this is suicide. Her brain literally becomes habituated to their presence, meaning the dopamine response diminishes with each interaction. You become background noise instead of the main event. The master of attraction understands that novelty doesn't mean being weird or trying too hard to be different. It means bringing genuine, unique perspectives, experiences, and energies that she hasn't encountered before. Anthropologist Dr. Christopher Ryan points out that humans are naturally drawn to genetic and experiential diversity because it signals evolutionary advantages. When you represent something genuinely novel in her experience, you're not just triggering dopamine, you're activating millions of years of evolutionary programming. This is where most pickup artist advice gets it backwards. They teach you to memorize routines and become skilled at performing the same tricks that thousands of other men are using. But genuine novelty can't be faked or copied. It comes from developing yourself into someone genuinely interesting, someone who has experiences, knowledge, and perspectives that most people don't possess. When you walk into her world, bringing elements she's never encountered before, her brain has no choice but to pay attention. The third component of the dopamine equation is what neuroscientist Dr. Kent Berridge calls wanting versus liking. His research reveals that the brain systems responsible for wanting something are completely separate from those responsible for liking it once you have it. This discovery revolutionizes how we understand attraction. The goal isn't to make her like you immediately. The goal is to make her want to understand you, to figure you out, to invest mental and emotional energy in the puzzle you represent. Dr. Timothy Wilson's research on effective forecasting shows that people consistently overestimate how much they'll enjoy things they can predict and underestimate how much they'll enjoy surprises. When you become completely readable to a woman, when she feels like she has you figured out, the wanting system shuts down. There's no more mystery to solve, no more reward to pursue. You've given her brain no reason to continue generating dopamine in response to your presence. This is why the most attractive men often seem slightly mysterious, not because they're being secretive for the sake of it, but because they understand that revealing everything at once kills the very mechanism that creates attraction. Dr. Dan McAdams's research on narrative identity suggests that humans are naturally drawn to complex, multi-layered personalities that unfold over time. When you present yourself as a complete book rather than a magazine article, you create ongoing opportunities for dopamine release as she discovers new layers of who you are. The practical application of this principle involves what psychologists call strategic self-disclosure. Instead of downloading your entire life story, your beliefs, your goals, and your feelings in the first few conversations, you reveal yourself in carefully calibrated doses. Each revelation should feel like a small reward, a piece of a larger puzzle that she's motivated to complete. This isn't about being fake or withholding information that's relevant to building genuine connection. It's about understanding that the process of discovery is often more neurochemically rewarding than the discovery itself. Dr. Arthur Aaron's famous studies on intimacy acceleration reveal something crucial about human bonding. Intimacy isn't just about what you share. It's about the pace and context in which you share it. His research shows that gradually increasing levels of mutual vulnerability create stronger emotional bonds than immediate deep disclosure. From a dopamine perspective, this makes perfect sense. Each step deeper into genuine connection represents a small reward, and the anticipation of the next level of intimacy keeps the brain's reward system engaged. Now let's talk about the concept that Dr. Lewis Howes discusses extensively in his work on masculine confidence: outcome independence. This psychological state is incredibly powerful because it fundamentally changes the energy you bring to interactions. When you're attached to specific outcomes, when you need her to respond a certain way for you to feel good about yourself, you unconsciously communicate desperation. And desperation is kryptonite to dopamine. Think about it from a neurochemical perspective. Her brain is constantly scanning for social cues that indicate your value and confidence. When you're outcome dependent, you're essentially communicating that your emotional state depends on her approval. This triggers what evolutionary psychologists call low status markers in her unconscious assessment of you. High-value individuals throughout human history have been characterized by their ability to maintain emotional stability regardless of external circumstances. Dr. David D'Angelo's research on attraction patterns reveals that women are neurochemically programmed to be drawn to men who display what he calls cocky, funny energy. But this isn't about being arrogant or disrespectful. It's about demonstrating through your behavior that you're not emotionally dependent on her validation. When she senses that you would be perfectly fine whether she's interested or not, it creates what psychologists call reverse psychology effects. Her brain interprets your indifference as evidence of high social value, which triggers dopamine release as she becomes motivated to earn your interest. This principle extends to every aspect of your interaction style. The way you text, the way you make plans, the way you respond to her emotional states. Men who trigger powerful dopamine responses maintain what Dr. Brené Brown calls emotional sovereignty. They're responsive and caring, but never reactive or needy. They offer their authentic selves without demanding specific responses in return. Let's dive deeper into the neurochemistry of uncertainty, because this is where most men completely sabotage themselves. Dr. Mauricio Delgado's research at Rutgers University shows that the brain's dopamine system responds most powerfully to uncertain rewards rather than guaranteed ones. When the outcome is completely predictable, dopamine production actually decreases. But when there's uncertainty about whether the reward will come, dopamine levels spike dramatically. Most men, in their desire to be good guys, eliminate all uncertainty from their interactions. They always text back immediately, they're always available, they always say yes to her requests, and they telegraph their interests so clearly that there's no mystery left. From their perspective, they're being kind and reliable. From her brain's perspective, they've just eliminated every reason to produce dopamine in response to their presence. The master understands that healthy uncertainty is the fuel of attraction. This doesn't mean being unreliable or playing cruel games. It means maintaining enough unpredictability that her brain stays engaged in trying to figure you out. Sometimes you're available for long conversations. Sometimes you have other priorities. Sometimes you're openly flirtatious. Sometimes you're more focused on intellectual connection. This variability keeps her dopamine system active because it can never fully predict what kind of experience it will have with you. Dr. Eli Finkel's research on relationship science reveals something fascinating about modern dating. People today have access to more potential partners than any generation in history, but they're also more likely to lose interest quickly. The abundance of options means that her brain is constantly comparing you to other possibilities. The only way to win this comparison isn't to be objectively better than everyone else at everything. It's to be uniquely compelling in a way that other options can't replicate. This brings us to what Dr. John Gottman calls emotional attunement. His decades of research on successful relationships show that the strongest connections form when both people feel genuinely seen and understood. But here's the crucial insight. Attunement that comes too easily doesn't trigger the same neurochemical response as attunement that feels earned. When you demonstrate that you understand her in ways that other people don't, and when this understanding develops gradually through genuine curiosity and observation, it creates powerful dopamine releases. The key is asking questions that nobody else thinks to ask and paying attention to details that others miss. Dr. Gary Chapman's work on love languages provides a framework for this kind of deep attunement. When you notice and respond to her specific emotional and communication preferences, especially preferences she hasn't explicitly stated, you demonstrate a level of perceptiveness that triggers what psychologists call feeling special responses. Most men try to impress women by talking about themselves, their achievements, their goals, and their opinions. But the neurochemistry of attraction works in reverse. Dr. Dale Carnegie discovered decades ago that people are most attracted to those who make them feel interesting and important. When your questions and attention help her discover things about herself that she didn't fully realize, when your perspective helps her see herself in a new light, you become associated with positive self-discovery. This creates what Dr. Daniel Kahneman calls availability heuristic effects. Her brain starts associating you with feelings of insight, growth, and expanded self-awareness. Every time she thinks about conversations with you, she remembers how good it felt to be truly seen and understood. This emotional memory becomes a powerful trigger for dopamine release whenever she anticipates seeing you again. Let's talk about the role of challenge in triggering dopamine. Dr. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow states reveals that humans are most engaged when they face challenges that are slightly beyond their current skill level. Too easy, and boredom sets in. Too difficult, and anxiety takes over. But the sweet spot of optimal challenge creates what he calls flow, a state characterized by complete engagement and elevated performance. This principle applies directly to attraction dynamics. When you present yourself as someone she can easily understand, categorize, and predict, you become too easy, triggering boredom responses in her brain. When you present yourself as completely out of her league or impossibly complex, you trigger anxiety and withdrawal. But when you present yourself as someone she could potentially understand and connect with, but only through sustained effort and attention, you hit the optimal challenge zone. This is why women often report being most attracted to men who are mysterious but attainable. The mystery provides the challenge that keeps dopamine flowing, while the attainability prevents the anxiety that would shut down approach behaviors. You become what video game designers call optimally frustrating, difficult enough to be engaging but achievable enough to maintain motivation. Dr. Roy Baumeister's research on the psychology of wanting reveals that humans are naturally drawn to experiences that require some effort to obtain. This is why exclusive clubs have waiting lists, why limited edition products create buying frenzies, and why playing a little hard to get actually works. The effort required to earn something becomes part of its perceived value. When applied to attraction, this means that making yourself slightly challenging to fully access creates what economists call sunk cost effects. The more mental and emotional energy she invests in understanding you, figuring you out, and earning your full attention, the more valuable that connection becomes in her mind. She becomes literally invested in the outcome because her brain doesn't want to waste the effort it has already expended. The neuroscientist, Dr. Robert Sapolsky, explains that dopamine is released not just when we get rewards, but when we work for them. The anticipation and effort involved in pursuing a goal actually creates more neurochemical satisfaction than simply being handed the same reward. This is why women often become more attracted to men who require some level of pursuit, while losing interest in those who make themselves immediately and completely available. Now, let's examine the power of what Dr. Albert Bandura calls social proof in triggering attraction responses. His research on social learning theory demonstrates that humans constantly look to others for cues about how to think, feel, and behave. When other people, especially other women, respond positively to you, it creates powerful social validation that triggers dopamine release in any woman observing these interactions. This phenomenon goes beyond simple jealousy or competition. Dr. Steven Pinker's work on evolutionary psychology suggests that humans have developed sophisticated mechanisms for identifying high-value individuals by observing how others treat them. When a woman sees that other people, particularly other attractive women, are drawn to you, her brain interprets this as evidence of your social value and begins generating dopamine in anticipation of her own potential interactions with you. The practical application involves what Dr. Keith Ferrazzi calls strategic relationship building. Instead of focusing all your social energy on the one woman you're interested in, you develop genuine friendships and connections with a wide range of people, including other women. This isn't about manipulation or trying to make anyone jealous. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts positive social interactions, which then creates cascading effects in your romantic prospects. Dr. Matthew Lieberman's research on social brain networks shows that witnessing others enjoy positive interactions with someone activates mirror neurons that simulate those same positive feelings. When she sees other people having good experiences with you, her brain literally rehearses what it might feel like to have similar experiences. This creates anticipatory dopamine release before she's even had significant direct interaction with you. Let's dive into the neurochemistry of humor and its role in attraction. Dr. Robert Provine's research reveals that laughter triggers the release of endorphins, dopamine, and oxytocin simultaneously. But more importantly, his studies show that women laugh 126% more than men in mixed-gender social situations, and they're significantly more likely to be attracted to men who can consistently make them laugh. But here's the crucial insight that most men miss. It's not about being a comedian or memorizing jokes. Dr. John Lyman's research on humor psychology shows that the most attractive humor comes from what he calls intelligent playfulness, the ability to find genuine amusement in everyday situations and share that perspective with others. When you can help her see the humor in ordinary moments, you become associated with positive emotional states that her brain will crave to experience again. The key is developing what Dr. Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset toward humor. Instead of trying to be funny, focus on finding genuine amusement in life and sharing that perspective. When humor feels natural and unforced, it creates what psychologists call emotional contagion. Her brain automatically begins to mirror your positive emotional state, creating shared dopamine release that bonds you together. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's research on positive emotions reveals that shared laughter creates what she calls positivity resonance, a state where two people's emotional and physiological systems become synchronized. This creates powerful bonding effects that go far beyond simple entertainment. When you can consistently create these states of shared positive emotion, you become neurochemically associated with joy and pleasure in her mind. The role of physical presence and body language in triggering dopamine responses cannot be understated. Dr. Amy Cuddy's research on power posing demonstrates that our physical posture directly influences our neurochemistry and hormone production. When you maintain confident, open body language, you're not just appearing more attractive, you're actually changing your internal state in ways that make you more genuinely attractive. But the effect goes deeper than personal confidence. Dr. Tanya Chartrand's research on behavioral mimicry shows that people unconsciously mirror the physical and emotional states of those around them. When your body language communicates confidence, calm, and positive energy, her nervous system begins to mirror those states, creating what neuroscientists call embodied cognition effects. This is why presence is often more important than words in creating attraction. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research on interpersonal neurobiology reveals that humans are constantly reading and responding to each other's nervous system states through micro-expressions, posture, and energy levels. When your physical presence communicates that you're comfortable in your own skin and confident in your ability to handle whatever arises, it triggers safety and attraction responses in her nervous system. The concept of emotional leadership becomes crucial here. Dr. Daniel Goleman's research on emotional intelligence shows that in any interaction, the person with the strongest emotional state tends to influence the emotional state of others. When you consistently bring calm confidence, genuine curiosity, and positive energy to your interactions, you become what psychologists call an emotional elevator, someone whose presence naturally improves other people's emotional states. Let's examine the power of what Dr. Sherry Turkle calls authentic vulnerability in creating dopamine responses. Her research reveals that while neediness repels people, genuine vulnerability, the courage to share real thoughts and feelings when appropriate, creates powerful bonding effects. The key distinction is that authentic vulnerability comes from strength, not weakness. It's the confidence to be real without needing specific responses in return. Dr. Kristin Neff's research on self-compassion provides the framework for this kind of authentic expression. When you're genuinely comfortable with your own imperfections and can share them without shame or neediness, it creates what she calls common humanity connections. Other people feel safe to be real around you because you've demonstrated that you won't judge or withdraw from authentic human experiences. From a dopamine perspective, this creates what Dr. Edward Deci calls intrinsic motivation responses. Instead of feeling like she needs to perform or be perfect around you, she feels free to be genuinely herself. This psychological safety creates positive associations with your presence and triggers desire to spend more time in the comfortable emotional space you create. The timing and context of vulnerability matter enormously. Dr. Arthur Aaron's intimacy research shows that vulnerability should be reciprocal and gradually escalating. When you share something real about yourself, it creates an invitation for her to share something real in return. This back-and-forth process of mutual disclosure creates what psychologists call escalating intimacy spirals that naturally deepen connection over time. Now let's explore the concept of masculine polarity that Dr. David Dada extensively covers in his work on sexual attraction. His research suggests that attraction often occurs between complementary energies, what he calls masculine and feminine polarities. Regardless of gender, people tend to be attracted to others who embody qualities that complement rather than mirror their own energy patterns. The key insight is that healthy masculinity isn't about dominance or control. It's about what Dr. Warren Farrell calls emotional strength, the ability to remain centered and purposeful even in the face of emotional intensity or uncertainty. When you can maintain your emotional equilibrium while being fully present to her emotional experience, it creates what Data calls polarity tension that generates natural attraction. This shows up in practical ways throughout your interactions. When she's feeling uncertain or overwhelmed, your calm presence provides stability. When she's excited about something, your grounded energy helps her feel safe to express that excitement fully. You become what psychologists call a secure base, someone whose emotional stability allows others to explore and express themselves more freely. Dr. Sue Johnson's research on emotionally focused therapy reveals that the strongest relationships involve partners who can provide what she calls emotional accessibility and responsiveness, while maintaining their individual identities. You're fully present to her experience without losing yourself in it. This balance creates both safety and excitement, triggering dopamine responses while building genuine intimacy. The role of purposefulness in attraction cannot be overstated. Dr. Viktor Frankl's research on meaning and motivation shows that humans are naturally drawn to others who have a clear sense of purpose and direction. When you're genuinely excited about your own life, goals, and growth, it creates what psychologists call motivational contagion. Other people become energized just by being around your sense of purpose. This is different from achievement or success, though those may be byproducts. Dr. Carol Riff's research on psychological well-being identifies purpose in life as one of the core components of mental health and attractiveness. When you're genuinely engaged in becoming the best version of yourself and contributing something meaningful to the world, it creates an energy that others want to be part of. From a dopamine perspective, purpose creates what Dr. Teresa Amabile calls progress principle effects. People are naturally motivated by the opportunity to grow, learn, and make progress toward meaningful goals. When your life represents exciting possibilities for growth and adventure, being around you becomes associated with personal development and expanded horizons. This explains why women often report being attracted to men who are going somewhere in life, even if they haven't arrived yet. It's not about current status or achievement, it's about the energy of forward movement and growth. When you embody this energy authentically, you become what psychologists call a catalyst, someone whose presence accelerates positive change in others' lives. As we bring all these elements together, remember that the goal isn't to manipulate or trick anyone into being attracted to you. The goal is to understand and embody the psychological and neurochemical factors that create genuine, healthy attraction. When you trigger dopamine responses through unpredictability, novelty, challenge, humor, vulnerability, and purpose, you're not playing games, you're becoming genuinely more attractive. Dr. John Gottman's extensive relationship research reveals that the strongest connections are built on what he calls friendship fires, genuine appreciation, curiosity, and care for another person. All the dopamine triggers in the world won't create lasting attraction without authentic interest in who she is as a person. The neurochemical understanding enhances genuine connection. It doesn't replace it. The most powerful realization is that becoming skilled at triggering healthy dopamine responses makes you more attractive, not just to women, but to everyone. These same principles improve your friendships, professional relationships, and overall social effectiveness. You're not just learning pickup techniques, you're developing a deeper understanding of human psychology and connection. Remember that Dr. Helen Fisher's research shows that attraction involves three distinct brain systems: lust, romantic attraction, and deep attachment. Dopamine mastery primarily affects the romantic attraction system, creating that sense of excitement and obsessive thinking that characterizes early attraction. But for relationships to develop into something meaningful, all three systems need to be engaged through genuine compatibility, shared values, and emotional intimacy. The journey of mastering attraction through understanding neuroscience is ultimately a journey of self-development. As you become more genuinely interesting, emotionally intelligent, and purposeful, you naturally trigger the psychological responses that create attraction. You're not pretending to be attractive, you're actually becoming attractive at a fundamental level. This is why the most successful men in dating aren't those who memorize the most techniques, but those who use psychological understanding as a guide for authentic self-improvement. They develop real confidence, genuine humor, purposeful lives, and emotional intelligence. The dopamine responses follow naturally from these authentic qualities. Your homework isn't to practice pickup lines or manipulation tactics. Your homework is to examine your own life through the lens of dopamine science. Are you living in ways that would make someone excited to be part of your journey? Are you developing the emotional intelligence and self-awareness that allow for genuine connection? Are you becoming the kind of person whose presence naturally improves others' emotional states? When you commit to this deeper level of development, when you understand and embody the principles that create healthy attraction, you don't just become better at dating, you become better at being human. And that's when real magic happens, not just in romantic relationships, but in every area of your life where human connection matters. The power to trigger dopamine, to create genuine excitement and attraction, isn't a manipulation tool. It's a responsibility. Use this knowledge to create positive experiences for both yourself and others. Build connections that enhance everyone involved. Become the kind of man whose presence makes the world a little brighter, a little more exciting, a little more hopeful. That's the real secret of unstoppable attraction, not making women chase you through tricks or games, but becoming someone genuinely worth chasing through authentic self-development and emotional mastery. Master the science, embody the principles, and watch as the quality of all your relationships transforms in ways you never thought possible.